we're about ready to start. If I can ask for all of the participants, we'll ask for Liang Lee and Peter Mandel and Ron Wolf, if you guys want to come up and take a stage. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 2012 Morgan Hill Election Forum, put on by the Chamber of Commerce. We did this 2 years ago and was rather successful. The goal here is to make sure that all the citizenry is aware of what the candidates stand for, and so they've got a basis upon which to do their selection. This year, in addition to covering the city council candidates that were running opposed, as opposed to those running unopposed, we also added measures A, B, and C to the forum. We did not get a response on Measure A. Mike Wasserman, our county supervisor, was not available tonight, and the opposition did not choose to respond. That was the same situation with regard to lack of response on Measures B and G. So tonight we do have representatives from the Santa Clara Valley Water District in Liang Lee to talk about Measure B, and from the school board, Peter Mandel and Ron Wolf to talk about Measure G. John and I have put together a series of questions to hopefully challenge them, but we also look for questions from the audience for any of the candidates or on the measures. Christine Giussiana, who is the President and CEO for the Chamber of Commerce, is available to pick up your questions. So any of them, if you have them, if you want a blank piece of paper to write them on, you can submit them now, or you could submit them later on after you've heard the candidates make a statement and you have a question that you would like to ask them about. From the standpoint of the gentleman in the back of the building back there, Larry Talbot is here from MHAT. He will be filming this. It will be on next weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday at 8 p.m., Sunday 3 times at 11 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. So if you want to see this one again, those are good times. Those are also the same times this weekend that the forum that took place last week with the AAUW will be held. And at that forum, they also had candidates from the Morgan Hill Unified School District that were running for that particular position. So that would be a very informative one for you to learn about those candidates as well. I do want to thank everybody for coming. Obviously, there's tremendous competition for this event tonight. Not only do we have the A's playing and the Giants already played, we've also got a major golf tournament taking place in town, and tonight is the start of the Poppy Jasper Film Festival. So a very, very busy weekend. Actually, October is going to be a very busy week with all the other activities that are taking place with British car shows and brew crawls and Safe and Sane Halloweens and all the other things in town. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. I am Jeff Burris. I am the co-chair for the Government Relations Committee of the Chamber of Commerce. My co-moderator tonight is John Horner, who is the chair for the Education Committee on the Chamber. Our timekeeper, a member of the board of the Chamber of Commerce, is Scott Wilson. Also here from the Chamber are Lorraine Welk, our chairperson, Rosemary Kamai, all on the board. It is the board that asked us to put this presentation on so that you would have information about what's taking place in Morgan Hill and what these candidates intend on doing, primarily for the commerce of Morgan Hill, but also for everybody who lives in Morgan Hill. We got some simple ground rules. As I said, the questions that you have, you can submit to Christine. Would you all now take a look at your cell phone and please turn it off, or put it on the vibrate mode or something so it's less disruptive to the audience. We will establish a speaking order specifically for the city council candidates. Every question will be asked of each candidate, but they won't have to answer it always in the same order. So the first candidate would get the first question, the second candidate will get the first opportunity at the second question, the third candidate will get the first opportunity at the third question, and we'll do the rotation of the questions in that manner. Any particular questions that you folks have before I start? Open forum, open mic. We also have a unique opportunity tonight. I had asked Mayor Tate to come in and speak, and he wasn't certain if he was going to be here because he was hosting an awful lot of important people with regard to the Fries.com Open. And he, instead of politicking and everything else as he might do tonight, he chose to be there. However, that event is taken care of, so he is here tonight. And I have asked him if he would come up and make a few statements with regard to the condition of the city and issues that he thinks are important to him. As you may know, he is running again for his fourth term for mayor, running unopposed, which I think speaks to the strength of the mayor. So Mayor Tate, if you could come up, and I'll ask you if you could use that microphone down there.
Thank you very, very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here and with you again. I really am honored that I am running unopposed. It seems to happen every other time I run for office, and this time it's a real blessing because I've had a real full and calendar and many things going on. I thank you to the Chamber for doing this. It's so important that we get, you know, our elected officials and our measures and things really understood. Don't want to tell you how to vote, just want you to vote and really understand what you're doing when you go out there and vote. So it is very important. Things going on in the city, and you'll hear more about them from the candidates, but there are some issues. You know, we no longer have a redevelopment agency. We're managing the end of the redevelopment agency and trying to maintain as much of our capabilities for modernizing downtown and doing the last things that we had intended to do with the redevelopment agency. We're not giving up on any of those projects. We're going to carry forward and get them done. But it does create a financial challenge. We have a very strong financial policy in terms of how we do our budgeting that we have to stick to make sure that we don't get in trouble like other cities do. But we are financially challenged. 90% of our discretionary funds go to public safety, leaving very little to do much else. We are in the midst of hiring a new city manager. We lose Ed Tweez, who's been with us for 13 years at the end of, or toward the end of December. I don't think the new city council that gets seated will have much to do with the hiring of the new city manager, but they'll have a heck of a lot to do with getting the new city manager really, you know, going for us and in sync with us and so forth. We're looking forward to doing a general plan update. That's an issue too. It's really, we need to get things going. We have to do that every 10 years. We need to keep the vitality of Morgan Hill kind of the way it is, the small town feel and all that. We got to keep the growth control that we've had since 1977, but we found in the downturn economy that there were problems with growth control. We'd like to use that general plan update as a way to maintain the growth control, the population cap aspect, but fix some of the problems that had to do with not being able to phase projects and the backlog of projects that got built up when the economy went down. So those are just some of the challenges that are facing this new city council that gets elected. Whoever does get elected, however, will be very honored to work with, and I'm very glad that I will be serving 2 more years, and thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Giving you an idea of the format, we're going to start off this evening with Measure B, which is here on the proposed side, the for side of the discussion, is Liang Lee, who represents the Santa Clara Valley Water District. Liang, you'll have 3 minutes for an opening comment, and as you know, 2 minutes for a closing comment. Each of the questions, we'd like you to stay within a 2-minute time frame. Scott is down there with both a 20-minute or 20-second reminder to kind of wrap up, and then the request to stop at the end of the 2 minutes, and hopefully you can get all of your important points across at that particular point. For the audience, let me identify that Measure B would renew an existing special parcel tax assessed by the Santa Clara Valley Water District on each parcel of land within the district. The tax would remain in effect for 15 years. The current parcel tax runs out at the end of 2013, so this measure will extend that another 15 years to 2028. With that, Liang, would you put forward the pro side of the measure?
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, everyone, especially the Chamber Board. It's a pleasure to be here and to have this opportunity to explain to you what this measure does to the community of Morgan Hill and to our county in general. And as a public agency employee, with this measure on the ballot, I really cannot campaign for this measure tonight. So I'm merely here to provide you with information telling you what the measure does, what benefits it brings. And hopefully you can make that decision yourself when you go back. This measure, as Jeff said, will continue an existing tax measure for another 15 years. It will fix the Anderson Dam. It will restore the pipeline to Morgan Hill to improve the groundwater recharge capability. You'll continue our water conservation efforts, providing services to homeowners to sustain our long-term water supply. You'll provide rebates to private well owners for nitrate treatment. You'll upgrade our pipelines to reduce impact and damage resulting from major earthquakes. You'll remove trash, debris, and graffiti from our watersheds. You'll conduct environmental restoration projects to mitigate the effect of urbanization that we caused and improve the wildlife habitats. You'll develop partnerships and pool funds together from the cities, the county, and the water district to restore creeks and provide trails and open space to the community. Last but not the least, you'll provide flood protection to Morgan Hill and 4 other communities from a 1% flood. So this is a summary of the benefits of the South County. But more importantly, Measure B allows the water district to have the local matching funds that we need, which will leverage, will bring in more than $400 million from the federal and state governments to create jobs in this county, to upgrade our water infrastructure, and to improve our overall living standard. With that, I'll be open to your questions later.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. We understand your constraints as far as not being an official proponent, so you can answer the questions, with the constraints in mind. But so from your point of view, what has been done by the Water District to date to ensure that the tax monies entrusted to it are used with care on behalf of the people? And are there additional measures, even beyond what's being done now, which will be implemented if Measure B is approved?
Thank you, John, for the question. The existing measure is overseen by an independent monitoring committee that's formed by community representatives all over the county. They oversee the management of the project, how the money is spent, and to make sure all the commitments made in the measure is achieved. And that independent monitoring committee ensures the measure does the right things that the Water District has promised the voters to do. And we learn from the execution of this existing measure that for the new measure, we've instigated 3 more audits, independent audits, that will be done every 5 years to make sure that the changed economic condition, the changed environment, and the changed project conditions, the more knowledge that we learn from these projects, we get to manage our projects properly and make sure that we do them properly. So those will be done for the new tax measure.
With regard to the opposition, which is primarily set up by the Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association as well as the Libertarian Party, one of the statements that they make in their opposition to it is that the budget is not used for safe, reliable water supply, that the budget does not focus on programs likely to improve water quality. Can you comment with regard to that statement by the opposition?
Yes, that's not true. This new tax measure will provide $45 million to contribute to the retrofit of the Anderson Dam. And that is a major, major project for us. Anderson Dam stores half of our surface water supply. If Anderson Dam is not fixed, our ability to manage our water resources will be severely affected. This measure will also restore a pipeline to the main avenue and Madrone channel in Morgan Hill that allows us to use the Anderson water to recharge into the groundwater basin of the Yadras Basin underneath Morgan Hill. It will restore the pipelines to install separation valves that allows us to isolate the valves so that in case of an emergency earthquake, for instance, we'll be able to separate the valves and provide alternative water supply to minimize the impact of earthquakes. So those are all water supply issues that we need to do, and we are doing it with this new tax measure. And Jeff, the second part of your question is, could you repeat that, please?
Indicated that the budget does not focus on programs likely to improve water quality. So those are the two statements that they had made.
Yeah, so on the issue of water quality, today, the homeless problem has become so much worse over the last 3 years. A lot of trash, debris, pharmaceutical waste were dumped into our creeks. And that water quality is a major issue we're facing today. And this proposed measure will have funds for us to clean up the trash and to provide the measures that we need to do to meet the Regional Water Quality Control Board's requirements that we need to achieve from year 2014, 2016, and 2018.
Thank you. From a Chamber of Commerce point of view, we're very much interested, of course, in promoting the well-being of the businesses in the region. You could say that's, very much the core purpose of a Chamber of Commerce. So given that, is it appropriate for the Water District to make a concerted effort to shop local for its products and services, or do you feel that's inappropriate? If so, whichever way you answer that, why, and how does the district proceed? What has been done in that regard to date, and are you looking at further measures?
That's a very good question, John. Whether we could use local labor, local consultants, local contractors, and local products in our work, that's a major issue that our board has looked at many times. And as recent as last week, it was brought up that we should be looking at ways that we could achieve that, to use more local products, local services. And our council has that task to bring this issue to the board again within the next month or so for the board to discuss again. So this issue of benefiting the local economy, the local community with our work, with the work that we provide, is a major issue that we're very much concerned of.
You've identified what happens if the measure passes. What happens or what doesn't get done if the measure doesn't pass? Specifically looking at Anderson Dam or those items that relate to Morgan Hill.
First of all, if this measure doesn't pass, it will significantly affect the services the water district can provide. All the major capital projects that we're doing on the watershed side to provide flood protection and environmental restoration are funded by the special tax measure that we have today. So if we cannot continue that tax measure, all these capital projects will have to be delayed, postponed. Also, the existing tax measure provides 15% of the operating funds for the watershed operations. So if the funding is stopped, the watershed maintenance efforts will have to be cut back. So that is the effect of this, the failure of this tax measure in general. But specifically for Anderson Dam, this measure will contribute $45 million to a total project cost of $185 million for Anderson that we estimate today. If this measure doesn't pass, the cost of Anderson retrofit would have to come out of the water rate payers. So the groundwater users and our treated water users would have to pay for that cost. So in terms of the water rate increase, this will certainly have an effect, but the Anderson retrofit will be done. The water district is committed to fix the Anderson Dam by 2018. We'll get that done. Whether we use the funding from this tax measure or from the ratepayers.
Thank you. One final question, Mr. Lee, and again, thank you for being here. The money that would come in if this measure passes, what fraction of the water district's in total budget would you say that represents? Are we talking about a few percent, half? Give us a sense of the total annual spend and what would be the difference with and without this measure.
Okay. Currently, the water district budget is right around $300 million, just slightly less than $300 million this existing fiscal year 13. And this tax measure will bring in roughly between $35 and $38 million for the first year. So that would account for roughly 12, 13 to 15% of the water district budget.
Just clarification, does that 30 to 35 million include the matching funds it draws in from other sources, or is that just the revenue from?
No, that's just the revenue. It doesn't include all the benefits that we will receive from federal and state funding.
So the total impact is more than 12%. Do you know what the total
Yes.
impact is, roughly? Very good.
We estimate today that we will bring in more than $400 million over the 15 years. And so if add the $400 million to the 15 years, and you can see the impact if this measure doesn't pass. And if we don't have this matching funds locally, we will not be able to do all these projects, including the Upper Yagas Creek project that we desperately wanted to do. And this $400 million contributed from the state and federal government is very important to us. So for today, we have a reputation out there that the water district, the Santa Clara Valley Water District, is eagerly seeking funds to do things to benefit the community. We participate in the National Association of Flood Management Agencies, and they all recognize this fact. My time is up, and I have to stop there.
Thank you very much, Liang. That kind of wraps it up as far as we're concerned with regard to Measure B. If there are other questions that you have on Measure B, please raise your hand and get those into Christine, and we will ask them when we get to the end of Measure G at this time. Now I'm going to turn our attention from a parcel tax to a bond issue. Speaking for the Unified School District Board is Peter Mandel, who is the past president for the board, and Ron Wolf, who is the current president for the board. Let me redefine for the audience. The Board of Education of Morgan Hill Unified School District proposes issuing bonds in the amount of $198.25 million. As identified in the measure, the bonds proceeds would be used for 1. Improve student access to computers and modern technology and provide quality education therein. Repair or replace leaky roofs. Upgrade plumbing, heating, cooling systems, classrooms, and outdated restrooms. Update fire safety. Maximize energy efficiency. Improve handicapped accessibility and modernize and modernize, construct, and acquire classrooms, equipment, sites, and facilities. With that as the opening comment, Peter, would you take 3 minutes and talk about the issue?
Thank you very much. So I have 3 minutes, but I grew up in New York, so I can talk really fast. So here we go. First, there's a couple of reasons that, sort of large reasons why I care about this measure, why we need to improve it. One reason is very emotional, and the other is very practical. So let's talk emotions first. I'm just so frustrated at the amount of funding that comes into education. I'm frustrated at Sacramento. I'm frustrated at Sacramento politicians constantly proclaiming that education is our top priority until they vote on something, and then it isn't. So I'm tired of all of that. I'm tired of our children in Morgan Hill getting funded at such a low level. Do you know that Morgan Hill students are 20% less? Our funding is 20% less than the statewide average. Why is that? Do you know that Palo Alto children are funded at over $5,000 per kid more than ours? That's 70% more funding for Palo Alto. Are there any students here? There you go. Is there any reason why you guys are not as deserving as Palo Alto children? No. There you go. So that's the emotional side of this. We have to take care of ourselves. No one's going to take care of our schools. No one's going to take care of our youth except Morgan Hill ourselves. And this is not a state proposition. This is not a county proposition. This is something that's local. So emotionally, I'm really into this. We really need to look after ourselves and stop counting on others. But let's talk rationally. What does this do? First, the really obvious stuff. The measure accomplishes 3 goals. The really obvious stuff is the buildings. We have very old buildings. You've seen our schools. Some of them are quite historic, if you want to say more possible. And so, as Jeff listed, we're going to have to take care of roofs. We have to take care of plumbing. We have heating systems that are not functional. We have ceilings that are falling. The usual stuff. We need to invest in our buildings and our infrastructure. You can all understand that. That's very important. The other element of this funding, though, is something that has to do with curriculum, has to do with education, and that has to do with technology. I've been a skeptic of putting more technology into schools for a lot of years because I felt that the curriculum was weak, the kind of software that you use was weak, the servers are weak. It takes a lot of hand. I could do better. It takes a lot of care and feeding, which we didn't have the skills for, and PCs were generally expensive. But that's all changed. We can now deploy technology to have a laptop, a workstation in front of every child in our schools, deliver curriculum directly in their hands. Every student in the entire district. This money, this bond, this measure raises enough money for us to have the finest technology infrastructure of any district in the county. It's a very important thing. So our buildings will be improved. Our technology will improve our learning, and we'll also get some relief in our general fund. So there's the other ingredient that you need to think about is, do you trust us? And we'll talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Your passion is appreciated. Some of these questions will sound familiar because they're similar to ones that have been asked before, and some will be specific to Measure G. But so we'll start with the same one. How has the school district ensured that the tax monies it currently gets from the taxpayers are being used wisely and as effectively as possible? And what, if any, measures are being put in place for the proceeds of this bond, if it passes, to further ensure the careful and wise and effective use of those funds?
Well, let me address the last part of that first of all. As part of this bond issue, there'll be an independent committee established. And the independent committee will be made up of different segments of the community. They will not be members of the board or instructors or administrators. We will have the senior citizens group. We will have members of the business community. In other words, those people will meet, and the funds from that and how they are spent will be audited every year as we're going through the bond process. As most of you know, in the last bond that we had basically 2 buildings constructed from the last bond, Sobrato High School and Barrett Elementary School. And that used up pretty much most of those particular bonds. So there will be ongoing reviews every year as long as this process is occurring, as long as the bonds are all sold, and to make sure that none of the monies, as we know, will be used for salaries, will be used, in other words, what I'm saying, teacher salaries, administrators' salaries. It's all basically pretty much going into instruction and the physical buildings themselves.
Thanks, Ron. By the way, you can hold the microphone a little further away. You're going to block people's ears out. Going to the opposition, one of the claims that they make is that of the monies being raised on a bond issue, $11 million a year is going to be spent on principal and interest to pay off that bond issue. That's $11 million that could better go to the students rather than going through the bond issue process and borrowing that money and doing the work from that standpoint. How do you address, how do you want to respond to that particular position from the opposition?
I want to draw an analogy here. When I buy my house, every payment that I make every month, so much goes to the principal, so much goes to the interest. A lot of it goes to the interest. When you build a new school building, so much goes to the principal, so much goes to the interest. You could put off doing these things, but then you'd have a crisis on your hands. You would have situations, and we don't have the money in the general fund. It's not there. I want to tell you one thing that's going to happen if Prop 30 does not pass. And I'm not changing positions here. If Prop 30 does not pass, and this is definite, I'm not making this up. I just attended an all-day workshop last weekend on school finance. We will lose, in every district in this state, will lose $457 per student immediately, which means in our district, we will lose $4 million. Now you tell me, where are we going to get the money if a crisis occurs, new roof, new boilers, new whatever? We don't have the money. We're not going to get the money. So, you know, we're looking at, this is the relief valve. This is what we have to use in all of these situations, no matter what the crisis may be. But you know what? When people come into this town, other than the fact they look at their property and they say, you know, I'd like to buy that house, but I want to know what the schools look like. What are the schools like in this town? Any realtors out there? Well, that's the question. I had, they call me Uncle Ron. I have some nieces and nephews that aren't blood nieces and nephews, but they moved down to Morgan Hill, and they say, hey, Uncle Ron, tell me what the schools are like. I said, I can tell you exactly what the schools are like. We have great schools.
Thank you, Uncle Ron. we called him that.
Very good. Again, kind of a repeat question. What is the school district doing now, if it's appropriate, to try endeavor to spend funds locally to support the financial economy from which the funds to run the schools come? And are there additional efforts in that regard that would be part of this bond, or do you feel that's not really an appropriate focus for the school district?
No, I think it's definitely an appropriate focus. We do, I mean, as a public agency, we have to go and put things out for bid if they're large enough. There's laws that we have to follow. But what we can do is encourage local business to apply. Sometimes local business don't know that there is business they can do with the school district. And so we've encouraged local business to come and try and do business with us. We try to make our processes simpler. And there's actually an event coming up jointly with the chamber to tell local business how to do business with the school district. So I think it's a wonderful thing that we want to keep our money local. This measure is meant to be local. We're trying to treat business local, and the district is fully in favor of that, and has a lot of active steps to make that real.
Along that line, October 20th, is that when it is? 22nd, Monday the 22nd is when the Chamber is going to be putting on an event very similar to what Peter was just talking about in terms of how local businesses can get involved with the school district and get a piece of the pie. Obviously, we want to try and do as much shop local as possible, so again, we encourage everybody to participate in that and send out any businesses that you know that you would have an opportunity to do business with the school district along that line. Actually, the next question, Ron, you kind of answered from the standpoint I was going to ask about Prop 30 and its impact. Staying kind of in that area, what is the time frame that the bulk of the money that you're looking for, the $198 million, will be raised? And when can the citizens expect, or the students more appropriately, and the faculty, expect to see results from the monies that are raised from the bond issue?
I mean, technically speaking, we'll be putting out the bond in a number of different series. And it'll be an initial series up front, and then I think 2 more. That'll stage the money out, because you don't want to collect all the money at once. It's not a useful way to make use of that of the tax that's being offered to us. The impacts will vary. I mean, certainly a lot of the physical structure you'll see right away. You'll see the usual, this project funded by proposition, whatever signs go in front of our buildings, and we'll be getting roofs, HVAC, heating, air conditioning, ventilation systems. All of those can get let out immediately, largely just limited by the capacity of the district staff to deal with that much construction, that much repair. But that'll happen right away. In terms of the technology that I referred to, that also will happen largely right away. The first step in a technology build-out is to build up our network capacity, because a lot of what we're trying to do is to not house a lot of the software on the district, inside the district, but rather have it streamed into our classrooms over the network, from the cloud, if you like that term. So we'll have to build out a network to support that, and then we will, the intent is to roll the brand new technology into each school sort of on a rolling basis. That way we can refresh the technology as it ages on a rolling basis, and we can verify that what we're doing it really works and really benefits our students. So we would pick 1 or 2 schools in the very first year and start rolling in, having technology in the hands of every student for that first year. And so I think you'd see technology right away, you'd see construction right away, but we know that this has to last, and so we're also building in money into the bond to make sure that we keep the technology refreshed and vital throughout the life of this effort.
Very good. Thank you, Peter. The next question, sort of in 2 parts. One, what level of voter support does this measure require to pass? Some folks from the audience have asked that question. And then second part, how much will their property taxes go up? Either in a percentage base or an absolute dollar basis if this measure passes.
Okay, the measure requires 55% plus 1 vote. So in other words, anything over 55%. I don't know who asked that question. And I would like to give you a little brief history. In the Bay Area, in the last few years, approximately 90% of the bond issues with school districts have passed. In the state of California, approximately 75%. Most of those that haven't passed have been in the San Joaquin Valley, I guess I'll say it, the conservative areas of the state. The cost of the bond will be approximately $5 per month per every $100,000 of assessed valuation. Now, I want to clarify, and I think most of you already know this, assessed valuation is not the market value of your home. Sometimes it depends on what the assessor, what's the assessor's mood like, and I guess you could take a $500,000 home and say, well, the assessed valuation is about $200,000. Okay, so then we're looking at $10 a month. We're looking at the fact that we're not going to go out and get that lunch out wherever it may be that month, because that is actually going to go onto your property taxes. To your property taxes. And what was it? Did I answer both parts of that, I think?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You got it. Okay, Measure G, thank you very much. We have 3 quick follow-on questions for Measure B. So, Liang, I'm going to ask you to be brief on your response on these, because we're just about out of our total time for this, and I want to get to the City Council. The first one is, are the federal funds that you mentioned already set aside, or does the money still need to be approved for their portion of the issues?
The federal funds is never approved. It's always year by year that we have to apply for.
Okay, so the measure gets passed, and then you apply for the funds, and then the feds decide yes or no.
Right.
Okay. The next one, a little bit longer, but I think it can take a short answer. What is the schedule for completing the flood control channel from South San Jose, crossing Watsonville Road and West Middle and terminating in Iagas Creek.
This Upper Iagas Creek project, that current schedule show that we will complete by 2019. So the end of fiscal year 18, we will finish that project.
Okay. And the last one, one of our audience thought you got cut off either by us or by your statements, and so I'm going to ask you to readdress. What has the Water District done to prove that passing Measure B would work? Looking for proof specific.
Passing Measure B would provide the $39 million that we need to complete Upper Iagas Creek project. There are many projects like that. We definitely need Measure B to provide this fund so that we can leverage state funding and federal funding for us to complete it. And similarly, for shoreline project, for instance, the entire South Bay is protected, will be protected by the shoreline project. If we don't have this measure to provide that basic funding, we will never get the federal government, the state government, or the other private companies to work with us to complete the project. So,
but the question goes to what is the proof that the work will work, that the projects will work and do what you say they will do?
yes. So the independent monitoring committee that will be set up as soon as the measure is passed, that committee will have meetings regularly to review the project performance, make sure that what we promised to do will be done. And the audit that will happen every 5 years, we'll have an external independent auditing company to come in to audit the plan, the measure performance and the achievement. That will tell the voter that everything is done properly. So accountability and transparency are two very important factors that the Water District wants to achieve in this measure, definitely.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Two more brief follow-on questions on Measure G. The first one, do you currently have the IT staff to set up the technology envisioned, or would additional specialty workers need to be hired for that? And then furthermore, how does this technology you envision us as taxpayers making a big investment in, what's the value in the classroom? How is it going to change and improve the educational experience of our youth here around?
In terms of the technology staff, I agree that one of the ways that technology becomes squandered is if it just starts breaking and then teachers find that it's not reliable and they kind of walk away from it. So indeed, part of this process is to bring in a strong technology staff. We actually just hired a new technology director who has an excellent resume and long experience in bringing exactly these kinds of programs into the location that he came from. So we're bringing in the right people with the right skills, and we understand that it needs to be funded, and that's been accounted for. And I think it's a very perceptive question because all too often you bring in technology and you don't maintain it, or you bring technology and that doesn't work. The other element of it is what we're looking at is trying to not house and administer so much technology ourselves. If we can the more we can get technology delivered from Khan Academy kinds of sites, if you're familiar with those sorts of sites, where we can bring in high-quality biology experiments, high-quality video, history video, high-quality mathematics instruction to assist the teachers to make them that much more effective. We don't have to house that on our own servers. We need the network to be able to stream that in, and that would be more the technique, is not to have to be sort of at the mercy of the infrastructure that would house the curriculum. We'd have the curriculum delivered to us, and it's a much more sustainable model. So that's the kind of thinking that we've been putting into this to make sure that not only is this an infrastructure that will be sustainable, be supportable, but also very effective.
Thank you very much. To Mr. Lee, Mr. Mandel, Mr. Wolf, the Chamber of Commerce thanks you very much for your time and your energy. And audience, round of applause for the speakers. Thank you. We're going to take about a 5-minute break while we change the dais up here and we bring the city council candidates up. If I could have your attention, we're ready to commence with the second part of the afternoon, the evening. From my standpoint, this is far more enjoyable because so very often I get an opportunity to present to the city council and they ask the questions, and this time I get the opportunity to ask the questions and look for the answers. So what we are going to be doing on this one is every question is going to be answered by each one of the candidates. We're going to start from what will be, I believe, your right to the left. So Marilyn will take the first question that we have. Joseph will respond first to the second question we have. Larry will then respond to the third question, and Matt will respond first to the fourth question, and we'll keep that rotation going through. So they're not always answering as the first party of the question, because they're obviously going to get a little bit educated on the responses that their competitors are providing. So with that, we're going to start off with Marilyn Liebers and a up to 3-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very honored to be here. I was sitting here last week, and I was honored then too. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Marilyn Liebers, and I am running for a second term, 4 years, on Morgan Hill City Council. I bring a lot of knowledge and experience to the council. Besides the 4 years, I was 6 years as a Parks and Recs Commissioner for the city of Morgan Hill. I'm a 35-year resident of Morgan Hill, so I am very involved with the citizens. I'm always willing to listen. I work in town, so I'm available quite a bit to meet with people, take phone calls, and I think that's important to be approachable. I am running because I feel that I am right in the middle of a lot of important issues. Our economic development, the hiring of a new city manager, we have a budget that we need to work on, and then we have union negotiations coming up. These are all important issues where experience and knowledge will come in handy. So that is why I'm running, and probably the most important reason I'm running is because I really care and love Morgan Hill. Thank you.
Joseph.
Hello, I'm Joseph Carrillo. I'm running for city council because I enjoy helping the city and I love all the parts of Morgan Hill. It's a cool town. I also enjoy politics. I'm trying to get more known in politics. I also volunteer for the Morgan Hill Aquatic Center. I volunteered for that, and also the 4th of July Parade that's every year in Morgan Hill. I'm also a community emergency response team member or a CERT member for the city of Morgan Hill. So I'm very involved with the community and enjoy the community itself. So I also enjoy these debates where I get to get on the stage. I enjoy these political forums. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about me and my campaign. So I guess that's it for now. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Joseph. Larry, please.
Thank you, and good evening. First of all, thank you to the Chamber for putting on this forum tonight. It's a great opportunity for people to come out and hear from the candidates. So thank you to the Chamber for not only this forum, but all the great work that you do on behalf of Morgan Hill. Jeff, John, Scott, the rest of the board members who are here tonight, thank you for putting the effort into this and, again, being with us. And of course, to my fellow candidates up here with me tonight, thank you for joining me. I'd also like to mention Councilmember Gordon Siebert is here with us tonight. Gordon, thanks for joining us. So at the break, you can give him all the real hard questions. So my name is Larry Carr, and I'm here tonight to ask for your vote. I'm running for re-election to the City Council. I'm proud to have served as your council member. Morgan Hill has seen a strong record of accomplishments during the time when I've served on the City Council. I've lived in Morgan Hill for virtually my entire life, having gone to kindergarten at P.A. Walsh Elementary and graduated from Live Oak High School, and now I'm raising my kids here in Morgan Hill. I'm running for re-election with a clear and a positive plan for Morgan Hill. continuing our sustainable budget strategy, improving public safety, controlling growth, protecting our natural open spaces, moving forward on vitalization of our downtown, and building stronger relationships with our youth and partnerships with our schools. We've balanced our budget by becoming more efficient and making cuts, and now the challenge is to continue providing the services for a growing community while maintaining that same fiscal responsibility. While this election is about the future of Morgan Hill, it's also about leadership. Morgan Hill is facing some of our greatest challenges while at the same time experiencing some of our greatest opportunities. We need leaders who are ready for the challenges and prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. I look forward to discussing more on these issues tonight, issues like the hiring of a new city manager, issues like the contracts that are coming due with our city employees and our general plan update and the other things that the mayor outlined for us earlier tonight. And I look forward to your questions and sharing those thoughts with my fellow candidates here tonight. Thank you again for joining us.
Please. My name is Matt Wynn. Thank you very much to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you and the business community. I am a real estate attorney. I represent brokers and agents, real estate brokers, real estate agents, developers. I also represent developers, contractors, subcontractors. I've also worked with the city of Morgan Hill on a few other real estate issues. I am a UC San Diego graduate. I graduated from Santa Clara University School of Law. A little bit before I get into the political speech, the political elevator speech here, I'll give you some details on why I'm running. So my wife and my family and friends live in the South County, a large portion of them. My wife and I want to ensure that this is a place that remains family friendly for the next 30 years. That's really important to us, that our kids in this community get a good education and live in a very safe area. So that's the main reasons why I am up here tonight. And another reason is my wife and I do quite a bit of community service. I serve on my homeowners association board. I serve on the library foundation, which raises money for the library extension project in the future, which is down the road. In addition, my wife is a San Jose native. She went to Valley Christian High School, and she has family from the South County. Her great-grandfather had a ranch on Day Road that our family would always visit. So we have roots in the community, but again, the reason I'm running is for the future of the community. Real quick, 3 issues I've identified that I think are important are the budget, growing the local economy, and public safety. So with the budget, I would support a fiscally responsible budget. With other California cities going bankrupt due to decreased tax revenue and increased pension costs, it's going to be really important we have a fiscally responsible budget. I want to make reductions to the budget without cutting essential services and jobs. This decreased spending. 7 of the past 10 years, we have not had a balanced budget and had to use reserve funds. So that was with the RDA. Now with the redevelopment agency being cut, that is a great source of tax revenue for the city. So we're going to have to find a way to continue to fund things we fund and run the city the way we run it with the RDA being cut. So growing the local economy is a part of that. That'll increase your sales tax revenue. And let's not add a citywide sales tax if possible. We got to look at all alternatives, but if it's possible, I know that's been an idea being kicked around. And let's continue to support the Chamber of Commerce as we currently do without the RDA and with the budget constraints. I mean, supporting business is very important. Let's do that. Let's keep the Grow Morgan Hill Fund for small businesses, despite the RDA being cut. Let's keep the commercial rehabilitation loan program, which improves existing buildings, despite the RDA being cut. And I am being cut off right now. Hopefully I can bring up public safety, which is probably the first thing I should have brought up.
We'll have questions on that. You'll get another bite at the apple. Okay, so now we'll start our questions. Again, a reminder, we're going to ask each of you to keep your answer to 2 minutes. Our timekeeper will help you with that. We will be going in order. The first question, we'll start with Marilyn and work our way down the table, and then we'll start with Joseph and so forth and so on. So the first question, what do you see as the 2 most important specific issues facing the city of Morgan Hill, and what in your background and skill set uniquely qualifies you to be one of the people addressing those 2 issues? Please, Marilyn.
Thank you. Personally, I think 2 of the biggest issues facing us right now is the loss of the RDA. because we do need to balance our budget. And personally, in my own work, I am the executive director of a nonprofit agency, and I manage a $200 million budget on my own with the help of a board of directors. So I bring very good fiscal stewardship to the city of Morgan Hill from the experience I have having worked in nonprofit all my life. The other important issue I see coming up this year will be the negotiations of renegotiations of our union contracts. It's going to be interesting, to say the very least. There's always two sides to everything. I think what I bring to that issue is my willingness to listen to both sides, bring the parties together, and always try to find a compromise that'll satisfy or at least help people understand both sides of it. The last 4 years I've been very successful in that, and issues that have come before the City Council where it's been kind of pre-decided a way the situation should go. And I have not been afraid to ask the hard questions and say, let's bring the parties together. Let's talk about this and see if we can come to a resolve that is satisfactory to everyone. So I think my people skills, my management skills, my leadership skills, along with my fiscal responsibility skills, will be all strong assets over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Joseph, would you like me to repeat the question, or have you got it?
Oh yeah, it's the same question. Okay, so I guess you can repeat it.
Sure. So, what do you see as the two most, specifically the two most important issues facing the city of Morgan Hill today? How do you intend to solve them, and what specifically in your background or skill set makes you especially qualified to be one of the people solving these two most important problems?
Well, one of the most important problems is the loss of the RDA funds. I know that without the RDA money, the council has a lot smaller budget, a lot less money without that RDA money. So that's one of the issues. The other issue is, what was the other issue?
That's for you to say. Whatever your second, your number two.
Well, making the citizens happy and redeveloping the southeast quadrant. There's a lot of people that have different opinions about if they want it developed or it kept as agricultural land. I'd rather see it kept as agricultural land, the southeast quadrant. And I guess what makes me fit for city council is I have a lot of leadership skills. I want to change things, I want to improve things. And I also volunteer for the community, so I guess that's it. You can ask me any more questions.
Okay, well, we'll come back around to you again. Okay. Thank you very much. Would you like me to repeat the question, Larry? Or?
I think I got it, John. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So the two most important issues I think facing the city in the next coming years is first and foremost our fiscal sustainability. How do we maintain the fiscal sustainability that we have over the past few years that has gotten us to a place where we'll have a structurally balanced budget next year and we can begin regrowing our reserves once again. How will I personally be involved in that, and what is my experience on that? I have served on the council that drafted our sustainable budget strategy that has gotten us into a place where we can say we'll have a structurally balanced budget next year, where we're in a much better place than some of our fellow cities across the state of California. And I was a part of developing that plan. The second issue that I think is really important to the city as we move forward in the next coming years is our general plan update. You know, the general plan is really the roadmap to our future. It is how the city is going to grow while still maintaining our quality of life. It delves into issues about public safety and our economy. And it is the, I guess again, the roadmap that the council uses when thinking about most things that happen in the city of Morgan Hill and how we're going to continue moving forward for a decade plus ahead of us. The last time we updated the general plan, I served on that committee. I co-chaired that committee along with the mayor. I initially began when I served on the school board, and I was the Morgan Hill Unified School District representative to the general plan update committee. In the middle of that process, I won a seat to the City Council and became the co-chair of that committee. So I've gone through an update process before, both as a member of the committee and then as a member of the City Council that got to review that general plan and ultimately approve it. And so I would say that those are the two issues, our fiscal sustainability and our general plan update that we'll be involved in the next coming years.
Thank you very much. Mr. Webb, would you like me to reiterate, or?
No, I've got the
Thank you,
question. So the two issues that I'll get back to public safety, which is what I initially brought up in my opening statement. That's definitely one of the big issues, considering the homicide on Cosmo that might have been related to a gang activity, and additionally Sierra Lamar. So public safety, I think, is a huge issue, and it's of crucial importance to all residents. So how are we going to ensure public safety? We're going to back the police department, and how are we going to do that? We're going to support trouble. First is through prevention. So let's work with get our youth in sports and education to prevent them from getting into drugs and gangs. Let's work with intervention. So let's go, if a kid is starting to head off into drugs and gangs, let's get into at-risk youth programs for those kids to prevent them from getting into gangs. And finally, suppression. Let's support the police. Let's work with CLEF, Community Law Enforcement Foundation. That would be something that I would do on City Council, is working with them and our budget. Let's make sure we budgeted appropriately. Our police are understaffed and underfunded. So, and if there is gang activity, let's police it aggressively to knock it out of our community. And then let the jails rehabilitate the criminals. But our job would be to police it aggressively. Finally, the second main issue is the budget and growing the local economy. As I brought up earlier, I think that with RDA being cut, that's going to be huge. I think with my legal background, considering the city is currently in a lawsuit with RDA, I think that's going to be very important. And I would not settle for I know how most of these things end up in litigation. They end up in settlement. So let's focus on a good settlement that gets our money back that we spent appropriately under the RDA. Finally, my HOA board, I work with the budget there. So let's budget appropriately. That's going to be very, very important in the future. And to finish up on what I was saying about the budget before,
Time's up.
Oh.
I want to try and keep it as close to that time frame for each of the individuals. And you can, if you have you can always add back in on a different topic. Being a member of City Council is not a full-time job. Every one of you has another job. In fact, the pay really isn't commensurate to close to a full-time job. For those of you who are not aware, the stipend per month is very, very small from the standpoint of what anybody gets for sitting on the City Council. Nobody on the council does it for the money, trust me. That being the case, how much, and this starts with Joseph as number one answer, how much time do you have to dedicate to the City Council position that you are vying for?
I have a lot more time than all the other candidates because I'm a full-time activist and politician, so I do have a handyman service, but it doesn't get enough customers, so basically I have a lot of time to donate to City Council, probably more than any of the other candidates. So if you're wondering if I have enough time to donate to the City Council, yes, I will. I do volunteer for other organizations like CERD and other parts of the city, but I'm sure I'd have a lot of time to donate to City Council, probably more than any of the other candidates.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, great question. I get asked this all the time. How do you find the time to do that work on the City Council? Some of you know I work for San Jose State University. I'm the Associate Vice President for Public Affairs at the university, and that's my full-time paying gig. I'm also a dad of 2 young kids, 13 and 10, and I am highly involved in their lives, both school and their sports activities and their friends. So there are lots of commitments that we have. But I'll tell you, those are the things that make us good citizen representatives. I, like many of you and many of my neighbors, get in the car in the morning and go to work somewhere, usually outside of town. And so I experience the same things that my neighbors experience. I experience what it means to sit in traffic when you're trying to either get to work or trying to get home for a flag football game, as I did this afternoon. I experience what my neighbors experience when they're trying to find the time to read that last page with their daughter before they tuck them in at night. I experience what my neighbors experience when after all the homework is done and after all the bedtime stories are read and after the kitchen is cleaned up, then you pull out the packet to read about the city council, or then you pull out the paper and read about what the city council did the night before. So I understand what those issues are from experiencing them directly. I've served on your city council for 12 years now, so I have learned how to budget that time and how to manage that time and how to put in the time. It is a big commitment. We have set meetings every month and then a lot of opportunities to meet with the public, and a lot of times when people want to spend time with us and ask us individual questions, either by phone, email, or in person. And it's important to make time for all of those kinds of issues as well. Like I say, I have sort of learned how to budget that. I've learned when to say yes and when, more importantly, when to say no on the commitments to my time. Thank you.
I also get that question quite a bit as an attorney. How are you going to make the time to serve 40,000, almost 40,000 people? It's a huge task at hand, and I feel I'm up to it. And as an attorney, you're ball and chain to the courtroom, there's no question. But outside of that, you actually have a pretty flexible schedule. So I don't anticipate that being a problem at all. And you know, hopefully I'm donating my time for the next 30 years. That's the goal, is to serve this community for the long haul. And as Larry said, my wife and I don't have children yet, so we have a little bit more time on our hands. But once we have children down the road, then you have the system figured out, as he alluded to right there. So that's the game plan for me.
Thank you. Marilyn?
I will admit it's a big commitment. My children are grown, products of Morgan Hill Schools, and I'm very proud of both of them. But I'm in a good place in my life because I do have the time to give to City Council, and I do work in town, like I said before. I am available. What hasn't been mentioned by any of us, including my colleague, is besides being on City Council, we all have outside commitments that are council related. We serve on different committees that represent the city. And I think through time management and the fact that I do have a very flexible work schedule makes it easy for me to work through all these different commitments. I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I think if you enjoy it, then of course your heart is in it, and so then you make the time. My life revolves around City Council. That's my first priority. And I have no problem working through everything and having the time. I meet with citizens all the time. I talk on the phone with them. And what is very nice is I get calls like a neighborhood. I just recently had 2 neighbors that were fighting. And with the 4 years experience I have, I knew who to call in the city that could help me work through this. So I had the proper information. But that took time, and fortunately, I had the time. So I don't see it as a problem. I really enjoy what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, for the next round, we'll be starting with Mr. Carr. And for this question, there's kind of a match set. So the questions we'll be asking the incumbent, the 2 incumbents here, are a little different than the questions for the 2 challengers. So it's not exactly the same, but a similar theme. So first to Mr. Carr. Decisions are often necessarily made without complete information and without being able to foresee the responses and side effects. We often say hindsight is 20/20. Given that, are there specific votes you made during your time on the council which you now look back on and say, had I known then what I know now, I would have made a different decision?
Great question.
Softball.
Yeah. No, all of my decisions have been right. Every single one. You get asked these kinds of questions, and as I have thought about it, probably the one that stands out in my mind the most, 4 years ago we put a measure on the ballot to try to raise utility taxes for public safety, to increase public safety. We spent a lot of time gathering information about that and meeting out in the public and hearing public input. 5 council members together on all of those information gathering sessions and listening to each other and learning what different concerns we each had and how could we address each one of those issues. We put that on the ballot with only 4 out of 5 council members supporting it, and knowing now that that really needed a unanimous vote, that is the piece of information that I think we were lacking in order to really move forward with asking this community to tax themselves to do something like improving public safety. Your council has to be united in that, just as our school board is united in asking us about Measure G. And so that's a very important piece, and I would say that is one of the issues that that I didn't realize at the time was going to be so important in needing all 5 of us in the same place for that vote.
You have time. Any others you care to mention, or is that enough?
Like I said, all the rest were right. So.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Webb, you don't have the same question. So to you. We have 2 incumbents asking the voters to keep them on the job, and as it works out, we have 2 challengers here asking voters to replace one of these incumbents with themselves. So you're a challenger. As a challenger, what council votes of the incumbents over the recent months or years would you have voted differently on, and why? And secondly, what unique viewpoint or experience do you bring to the table which is superior to that of those you wish to replace in this case?
Sure. So a 5-0 vote is good, as he said a lot of the time, but also there has to be some disagreement and some exchange of ideas and opinions on the board as well. And I do see a lot of 5-0 votes, and I think there's times where I'll stand by my principles and, have a different opinion than the board, and I think that is part of democracy, and I think that's part of being a good city council as well. And in exchange of ideas, working with the city council, but also having a difference of opinions. So one idea, for example, and the city has a lot of great ideas, the direction. I think a lot of people are very happy with the direction of the city. So they said, well, why should we bring you in? If we're happy with the direction of the city, well, I think I am too. I'm happy with the direction of the city. I'm happy with good decisions like the CRC, which benefits a ton of people, and my wife and I love it as well. But there are times where I think there weren't the best decisions made. One of those may be 3rd Street Promenade. If we could look back at that, maybe let's take that $4 million, or give or take, and give that money into downtown parking. Directly ask the businesses, ask the Chamber of Commerce, what do you guys need? We need parking downtown. That will bring business in. 3rd Street Promenade, which is kind of a mixed use. You have residential. You need the street to be used for the driveways. I don't know how much that brings people down there, and how much it supports the businesses. Another new idea. Let's make sure the 101. Let's make use of the 101. Obviously, we're never going to do outlets like Gilroy does, or we're never going to be the sweatshop of San Jose, like further up the 101, but let's make use of that, maybe some office buildings. We still love our rural feel of the town. Let's keep that rural feel. I'm not saying let's ever get rid of that. That's what makes Morgan Hill great, but it is also something we could look at. Something that I bring different to the board is my legal background. I think, especially when you're in a lawsuit, that's going to come in handy, but also just knowing we're working within the parameters of the law, and also having that real estate background, I think, will be a strong asset to the City Council.
Thank you, sir. I'll rotate around to Marilyn. Would you like me to repeat the incumbent question?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Unlike Mr. Carr, I don't have any regrets on votes. However, I am often a lone vote against a subject. So I am not afraid to vote no. And in fact, I want it on public record when I do not agree. As a council, we get along very well. And if I vote no on something, there is such mutual respect that we move on. I have heard, councils that fight and hit each other, and we're not like that. So I really don't have any one subject or any one vote that I regret. I do my homework, I think it through, I don't make snap decisions, and so I'm satisfied with the decisions I have made, and like I said, I do want them on public record when I do vote against something. And I thank my colleagues for being respectful of that, and not taking it any further than, okay, she voted no. And of course, it goes both ways. If one of my colleagues votes no, then that's the same way for me too. So that's basically, I don't have any no's.
Okay. Joseph, would you like me to repeat the challenger question?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the question. We have 2 incumbents asking the voters to keep them on the job, and we have 2 challengers asking the voters to replace one of these incumbents with themselves. As a challenger, what council votes of the incumbents would you have voted differently on in recent months or years, and why? And second, what unique viewpoint or experience do you bring to the table which is superior to that of those you wish to replace?
I think I would have voted no on most of the ones that Marilyn Liebers votes no on, because I've seen some of the stuff she votes no on, and I would not be afraid to vote no either, just as she does. I'm sure there's other issues that I would want to do better than the other council members, so I would try to, I guess I would bring more information to the council. I guess I would want to improve the council, so if there's something I have to vote no on, I wouldn't be afraid to vote no on it, so. What was the other question?
That's really it. Any particular experience you bring that's different from these other people, and why you would be a strong voice for a different point of view?
Well, because I have a different point of view. I mean, I'm unique compared to all the other council members. So because I have a strongly different point of view, I'd bring a lot of improvements to the council, a lot of great ideas. So I would definitely bring a different point of view to the council, because I not only worry about stuff at the local level, I worry about stuff at the state and national level too. So I would bring a definitely different point of view.
Thank you. Matthew, we'll start off with you on this one. City manager. And I like the question. The audience came up better than the one I had put together on this one, so I'm going to read it. The city manager has turned in his resignation. The city council must be interviewing candidates for a replacement. The city manager is probably the most powerful position in the city. What do you want to see in a city manager? Traits, experience, and please be specific.
Sure, and the city manager is a very important position, so we really need to take a thorough look at that and see who's out there, and whether it's from the outside, from a different city. I want to see a proven track record of success on the city budget. You know, the budget issue is a huge issue. I want to see a successful track record of working with a balanced budget. If we could hire within the city, I'm also in favor of that. I went to the candidate orientation meeting, and these employees that you have working for your city are amazing. They are bright, experienced, just knowledgeable people. I was very impressed what kind of hands the city is in. It's very impressive. So if we could hire within, I mean, they're going to have to show that they understand the budget and could understand the major issues facing our city. But they already have the vision for the city. They already know the city's issues. So you already have that taken care of. But also, a city manager, I don't want a yes man or yes woman. I want to see them presenting us a plan and their vision for the city, and then we have to go back and forth and debate it and disapprove of it. So I want to see someone who has a vision for the city that's different than all of ours, and we will work together for the best of the city. Again, just I think the budget issues are the main driving force of who the city council needs to elect or appoint, to city council or to the city manager position. Thanks.
Okay. Go down to Marilyn. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. I got it.
Good.
City manager is a very important role in our city, and we've been fortunate to have Ed Tweez for many years to guide us along. What people, I think, in general don't understand is the city manager runs the day-to-day operation of the city, where the city council governs the city. So we need somebody that can communicate well, will work well with the city council. I agree with Matt. Budget is very important, and proven track record is very important. But the other qualification that I would like to see in our new city manager is someone who understands the state of California and how the issues work that affect us in a city, and also at the county level too. So that experience in our local government, local meaning the state of California, in my opinion, is very, very important qualification for a city manager. And like I said, again, open communication. There's an old saying, bosses don't like surprises. Well, kind of the city council is the boss. we don't want surprises. We want to know ahead of time. We want to be able to make informed decisions and not have stuff sprung on us. So communication, budget, and like I said, very important, a familiarity with the state of California and the county on how their decisions affect us as a city, I see is very, very important. And like Matt said, if we hire from within, I think we have an excellent pool. If we hire from outside, it's going to be important that they understand the feel of our city, that we might be a population of 40,000, but we're a small town at heart. So we can't have somebody coming in that doesn't understand that. None of us want to lose Morgan Hill and that feel.
Thank you. Joseph, would you let me repeat the question?
No, I remember it's about the city manager.
Yes.
Okay. So the city manager I see as a very important person. I really like the old city manager at Tweez, and I hope the new city manager is just as good, because I noticed the city manager actually has more power than a mayor, because they have direct control over all the departments, including the Public Works Department, the Police Department, the Recreation Department. They oversee all the city's employees, and I see that the city manager is the most important job in the city. So I hope that the city manager they get is as good as at Tweez, because I also noticed that Tweez worked with the city attorney, Danny Wan, and at Tweez was familiar with a lot of laws and stuff that I don't know if all city managers are as familiar with as the stuff at Tweez was familiar with. So I hope the city manager they get is just as good as at Tweez.
Okay. Larry?
Great, thank you. Yeah, we've been fortunate with the guidance and advice that we've gotten from current city manager at Tweez over the years to be in the place where we are. So, big thank you to Ed and the leadership he's provided. The next city manager of Morgan Hill is someone who is going to need to be, in my mind, passionate about local government. Someone who lives and breathes it and enjoys that every single day. Being passionate about local government means lots of things. They certainly have to understand the finances and how the state of California's finances work, because that's what affects us so directly. They also do have to understand government relations. We're part of a region. We're not an island unto ourselves, and so we have to understand how our relationship with the school district works, how our relationship with the water district and the county, Gilroy, San Jose, and the state of California, as well as the federal government and who our representatives are, and how all of that works. Our next city manager needs to be a problem solver, a strong trait that I believe Ed Tweez has. As council members, we are asked frequently to solve problems, and we need help in doing that at times. And we look to the city manager to help solve problems on behalf of the city. And then a city manager, I believe, needs to be a good communicator, both with the employees, as the leader of all the employees for the city of Morgan Hill, to help them understand the direction of the city, a good communicator with the city council, and a good communicator with the community to help the community understand the direction of where the city is going. Just a quick bit on the process of what we're using to hire a new city manager. We have hired a search firm because the city council felt it was important to go out and recruit the best and the brightest from wherever they may be, whether that is internally or externally, that we want to recruit and get the absolute best city manager that we can. And so that search firm is out in that recruitment process right now to find us the best candidates that then we can interview and select from. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're back to Maryland being the first on the next question. Morgan Hill is both its own economic engine with its own jobs, and it also is, for many people, a bedroom community for jobs to the north of us. Given that, and given that the RDA is gone, and setting aside, however that wind down goes, whatever all the issues are around that, looking out over the next 10 years, say, whether it's through business fees or other avenues, what are your ideas and strategies for promoting high-quality economic development in Morgan Hill in a post-RDA framework?
Good question. Loss of RDA actually was a big hit for us, so now we have to put on our thinking caps and come up with some other ideas. One of the things that I'm really in favor of is tourism, and I know the Chamber is very involved in that. I feel tourism is going to help us economically improve by becoming a destination. We have amazing sports facilities. Right now we're looking at expanding in the next years to add baseball fields. That economic development will bring families in, one, to live, hopefully, and two, to visit. Morgan Hill's a great place to live and to work and to play. So I would think that economic development in the tourism industry will be very good. As far as filling some of our empty spots out in our business parks, the City Council has been very active in saying that we will go out, we will meet prospective people that want to rent in Morgan Hill or build in Morgan Hill. Nobody can sell Morgan Hill better than we can. We love Morgan Hill. So that's what's going to draw people here, and with that will be jobs. Those people will shop in Morgan Hill. So that's very important, to fill up those business parks before we start building more business parks. I think economic development needs to revolve around filling what we have. As far as downtown and small businesses, I'm very pro the downtown corridor and all of that. I'm getting the word here to stop talking. I've been friends with many merchants downtown, and I've always got their back. How can I help you? If they need me, they call me, and I'm there for them. That's going to build our economic development too, to improve that downtown, to keep it the way it is with the friendliness, but also bring in more business. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph, would you like us to repeat the question, or you? Basically, in a post-RDA world, what are your ideas for driving the economic development of Morgan Hill over the next decade?
What Marilyn mentioned is good, tourism, because tourists are like the city's customers. To bring more tourists would bring the city more revenue. So I think making sure that those vacant business buildings get full of businesses, bringing small business to downtown would help a lot. Also having more local events to attract tourists, I think would help. So I worry about the same things as Marilyn was worried about, the tourism. So I think it's hard to manage a city that's that low on budget without the RDA funds. It's a big difference, a huge difference. So it's going to be hard to manage the budget without the city bringing in more revenue from tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carr, would you like to repeat?
I got it, thanks. So in a post-RDA world, economic development in the city of Morgan Hill. Well, the first thing we all have to realize and agree upon is that we are not a Morgan Hill economy, that we are a regional economy. And how do we engage ourselves in that regional economy to the benefit of Morgan Hill is really where the question lies for me. So that means that we have to be involved in Silicon Valley. Your council members are your ambassadors to the region, to Silicon Valley. The people that you select to serve on the city council will be those people that go out and meet with and join regional associations. They'll be the people that go out and meet with employers that possibly may bring their jobs down to Morgan Hill. And so being involved in that process is what I think is so important in economic development. When we talk about downtown Morgan Hill and what are we doing with downtown Morgan Hill, over a year ago as it was clear the direction of where the RDA was heading and what the state was doing to the redevelopment agencies, we established the Morgan Hill Economic Development Corporation, a private nonprofit that is governed by a board of civic leaders and business people in Morgan Hill. The council appointed 2 members, myself and Gordon Siebert, to serve on that 7-member board, and that board asked me to chair that committee. We're responsible for the community assets that the redevelopment agency used to own. We're emphasizing revitalizing downtown, but with the vision of the specific plan for downtown that has been approved by the City Council and by voters in Morgan Hill. And it's through that Morgan Hill Economic Development Corporation that will continue to do economic development, particularly when it comes to the downtown. But one of the most important things we can do is to protect the quality of life in Morgan Hill. That's lots of things. That's our environment, that's our partnerships with our schools. Our schools are so important when it comes to economic development. And it also is issues like public safety and transportation. How do we maintain those functions in Morgan Hill so that job providers will want to be here in Morgan Hill? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Webb?
I think the answer is just letting businesses do their job. And whatever support the City Council currently gives to businesses, let's continue that despite the RDA being cut. Right now we are kind of a commuter city, so let's slowly transform that and bring quality jobs to Morgan Hill. The South Valley Angels is a group of local businessmen who have got together and raised money to invest in businesses in Morgan Hill. I think that's a great idea. We have IBM employees here, we have a very educated population. Let's bring some of those jobs here, slowly transform us from a commuter city to more of where we could not have to commute to San Jose to do our jobs. Let's not add a citywide sales tax. That won't attract businesses to Morgan Hill. So let's make sure we are a place that businesses see, this is where I want to do business. Let's, again, support the Green Business Project, the high-tech investment, South Valley Angels, groups like that. We have to support them. Let's support local businesses. Support downtown specifically for the downtown's, the growth control plan. But the downtown exemption, that's great. We have to have an increased population density downtown to support those businesses. Finally, you see the restaurants doing real well downtown, but they can do better. And how they're going to, again, the downtown specific plan, allowing that population density to increase will help. People could walk to get coffee. They're going to be right there to support those businesses. Ask what business leaders need. Again, 3rd Street Promenade may not have been the best idea. Parking garage may have been better. Let's make the Granada Theater. Let's bring something attractive to downtown. Granada Theater. Let's turn it into a mixed-use building with theater and live music, which we are in the process of doing. And one idea just to throw out there. Let's extend downtown from East Dunn to Tenet. Let's change the zoning on that down the road. It's something we could look at in the future. Get rid of the strip malls and make it extend to downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question is related to this one, so I'll pull it. This has also come out of the audience. Well, Joseph, we'll start with you. What is your plan to keep jobs local when local contracts are awarded by the city?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm for more local, keeping jobs local. So to create local jobs, you would have to restrict it to local businesses. So you would have to choose businesses that are local, not ones that are far away. Yeah, the city needs to be more independent and more local and more sustainable. So yeah, I am for creating local jobs. And what else do you want to know?
Just any plans that you have to accomplish what you just said. And typically the city will put out bids.
Yes, I know the bidding process, that all cities have to do that. That's a bidding process. But it would be tricky to make the jobs local, but somehow encourage the businesses or notify the businesses when there's an open bid to bid for that are local. Find a way to notify local businesses when there's an open bid. So encourage local companies to do the jobs and not out-of-city organizations.
Okay, thank you. Larry?
Well, when contracts are let out by the city, it's governed by state law on how you do that bidding process and how a potential or how a bidder is ranked. And so you can't simply just take someone out of order. There's state law that governs that. We follow that state law today. That being said, there's more that we could do when thinking about recruiting potential bidders for contracts, and how do we communicate with our local business community and those that might be interested in bidding on projects or bidding on contracts. Understanding that they may in fact qualify in places where today they may not understand that they qualify. It's great to hear that the Chamber and the school district are now engaged in that kind of a discussion as well, about how school district contracts can be let out to local firms as well. So that is one of the main ways that we can improve that, is how we improve our communications and talking with Morgan Hill firms and Morgan Hill businesses, local business people, about the opportunities that may be out there. But when it comes to the bidding process itself, it is governed by state law and governed very closely by state law. So we follow that process when letting out contracts. Thank you.
As an attorney, I know the hometown favoritism you get in some courthouses. And as Larry said, it's governed by local state law. And I'm all for supporting local business. That is the goal. But if you're talking about a government contract, governed by state law. Also, you know, if you grow the local economy, then you're going to have a greater source of a greater pool to give them to hand out or to have them bid on contracts. So I think growing the local economy will solve part of that problem. Will not solve the problem, but be able to hire local business, and then just again recruiting local businesses, getting the word out to local businesses when the contract is out there. I think that's the answer.
Marilyn?
Well, you asked the right question for me because I am well known at City Hall to support local businesses. I often ask when contracts are before us, how many local people do you plan to employ when you do this job? Just recently, we put our landscaping out for bid, and our department that was in charge of that said they literally opened the yellow pages and asked the Morgan Hill companies to apply. And what do you know? A Morgan Hill firm got all our landscaping business. So I was very pleased about that. Yeah. And just recently, we had a janitorial contract that was out for bid, and that turned to be kind of a fiasco. And I asked a lot of questions during council. I felt the bid process was flawed, and that is something I definitely plan to bring up at our retreat as a goal for next year, that we come up with a consistent bidding process. As a result of the loss of the janitorial bid, 8 local people lost their jobs, which I was very concerned about. Yes, we got a lesser bid, okay? However, those folks lasted 6 weeks and could not do the job. In fact, made the front page that they quit. And I don't know if they quit or were asked to leave. I really don't know the details. But I found out about it by reading the paper, and I was most upset about that. That's one of the things where I said communication is very important. The council person doesn't want to read something in the paper. So I am pro-small business, I am pro-local business, and I will fight to see that we make a more concise way to put these bids out that give local businesses some priority. I know you can give priority to women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, disabled businesses. So let's see what we can do for our local businesses.
Thank you very much. Okay, new question. We're going to go to the area of public safety. We got everybody, okay. Just making sure I'm doing this correctly. Public safety and the cost thereof. Public safety has multiple dimensions. We all want to be as safe as possible, and there are only so many funds available with which to do that. Our understanding is that in 2013, a new contract must be negotiated with the unions. I believe the police department is up at that time as well. Is that correct? Okay, make sure I have it right. In the past, at some time in the past, we contracted out our fire department to first the county, and now we're moving to CAL FIRE. So at some point in the past in Morgan Hill, we made a decision not to be in the managing a fire department business. There have been discussions in the paper and over the years, most recently around the specifically the 911 response and dispatch portion of the police department, maybe making that regional. From time to time, the idea has been floated of potentially merging the police department in with the county sheriff in some way and doing it contracted. So I will start with you, Larry Carr. You have a lot of experience in all these issues, and it happens to be your turn. So where do you see the best places for us to go in managing the costs of providing public safety and providing the best public safety possible. It's a duality, I guess.
Yeah, great question. Very good and important issue for the community to be talking about, for these candidates to be talking about. Public safety today is just over 80% of our general fund budget. So over 80 cents of every dollar spent in Morgan Hill is spent on public safety. That's combined both police and fire. Fire services, yes, we are contracting out our fire services to CAL FIRE. They will come in and operate the fire agency in the city of Morgan Hill. For the past, well, it was in the mid-90s when we developed a contract, when the city developed a contract with County Fire to provide fire services in Morgan Hill. This past year, we were looking for budget savings, and so the mayor and I led a task force to look at how we could provide fire protection safety in South County at a reduced cost without lowering service at all. And in doing that, we put out an RFP, and CAL FIRE was a recipient of that contract. We will save about $800,000 in our budget as a result of that contract, so significant savings without losing any of our service. That makes sense to me in contracting out our fire services like that. Over the years, people have asked about, well, why don't we do that with police services and contract with the county sheriff or with another agency? And that simply doesn't make sense to me. What makes sense to me in police services is that you engage the community in community policing. By contracting out to another agency, I don't believe you can know our community as well. I don't believe you can understand our community and the challenges that our communities face when it comes to public safety. And so contracting out of our police services is not something that makes sense to me. Yes, our contracts will be up in 2013. We have 3 unions that represent employees in Morgan Hill. One of those is the Police Officers Association, and we'll be negotiating with them over terms of their contract for the coming years. I see my sign is up, but maybe there'll be some follow-up on this because this is a very important topic.
There could be.
So negotiations with the unions, it's going to be tough because it's going to have to reflect the fact that the city has a decreased tax revenue, right? So you've got decreased tax revenue, you have increased pension costs, you have the RDA being cut, a large portion of our general fund is going to fund public safety. So, but at the same time, this is not an area you try to skim either because public safety can't be compromised. So it's really a tough situation, and you just have to work out, negotiating with unions is like negotiating in mediation and arbitration. Is you have to have a fair result for both sides, and that's usually both sides are pushing hard for the bottom line that they want, and it normally ends up somewhere in the middle, and hopefully it ends up somewhere fair to all the parties involved. Again, my 2 main things is growing the local economy and the budget and public safety. So obviously, you want to negotiate hard with the unions, and I think the main thing is to make them aware of where your budget is. Say, hey, this is how much money we have all these different things to fund here, you got to work with us right now. These are tough economic times, so that's going to be how it's done.
Marilyn?
Yes, negotiations will start 2013. Wow, it's going to be a tough one. We've worked with the unions before, and they haven't wanted to give much. But I think that they have to realize that we have financial constraints, and they have to also realize we understand their side of it. So we have to bring the parties to the table. We have to listen to each other, and we have to come up with a plan that'll be fair for all involved. That's very important for me. Right now, Morgan Hill has the lowest ratio of police officers to citizens of any city in the county. Luckily, we're a pretty safe city, so it's working out pretty well. But we need to improve that if we can. And our police department has been very active in going after grants, working with the school district and other things. We're able, we settled with a corporate yard dispute. We had some financial disputes with the school district over that. And by settling that, we were able to fund a school resource officer. So there are ways to work through this, and it's important that we understand that there's grants out there that'll fund things. There's ways to work with our partners to fund this. And to tag on to what Mr. Carr said about the fire, it was a tough decision, and I have to say that the folks that worked on that, I was not on that actual committee, they did an excellent job of making sure that we were comparing apples to get the same service, and I'm sure that we will. And the important thing is, what it does for us is it adds a third fire station in south of Morgan Hill, which was the CAL fire, now will become a city fire station too. So those folks that were at that end of town had less response time, or a lower response time, and now they won't, and we won't be asking for mutual aid all the time. So the fire was an excellent decision.
Joseph?
Yes, yeah, I agree. The CAL FIRE is, if it brings a third station to Morgan Hill, that's helping the city. So I guess the CAL FIRE negotiation wasn't too bad. As far as the police department, that should be part of the city and shouldn't be contracted out. I know a lot of the police officers. There's Chief David Swing, there's Captain Jerry Newmeyer, there's an officer, Michael Brookman. I know a lot of the officers and sergeants, so they're really nice people. So that service should not be contracted out. It should stay in Morgan Hill. And I hope the city can manage the public safety budget without having to contract that service out. Is there any other questions?
That should cover it. Okay, we have time for one more question and then a wrap-up. And as a word to all of you, in your wrap-up, you've all run a little bit long on one or two topics. I've got a variety of additional questions here with regard to agriculture, with regard to city fees, with regard to myopic look at just downtown and not necessarily small businesses elsewhere in the city, and a couple of others. We're going to focus our last question on the general plan. And so as you're going through this particular answer to this question, and then when we're done with that one, we will then ask you to come back and do, I think what I'm going to do at this particular point is extend your wrap-up from a 2-minute to a 3-minute. We are just about at 9 o'clock. The A's are still losing 1-2. It is the top of the 7th inning. This will give us plenty of time to wrap this one up and then get back and see the last couple of innings. We are going to start with Matthew, and the question is, if elected, during your tenure of office, the general plan will be updated. What changes will you be championing? Championing. I don't think I can say that word. What changes do you champion?
Well, I think as Mayor Tate alluded to during his introductory speech, you have to keep growth control, but you have to have some tweaks to it. When contractors can't build because of the economic conditions, and then it's going to affect their ability to, and then when the economy starts rebounding, they start building again, all of a sudden they have certain phases that they have to only build up to that number of units, and then we had 3 years where they weren't building. So there has to be some changes to update the general plan with those changes. I think we should keep the downtown specific plan. It has an exemption to growth control, which is nice. Again, you need to have a population down there supporting those businesses. I think Southeast Quadrant is a big issue that hasn't been discussed too much, so I'm for and updating the general plan may be a bit premature for that, but eventually we're going to have to, the city is going to have to, not have to, but may annex part of the county land. So with the Southeast Quadrant, I would be for the agricultural preservation plan, which saves an equal amount of farmland. I'm strongly in favor of the Catholic high school that could be built in the Southeast Quadrant. How great would that be to have an Archbishop Mitty where our kids could go there? I mean, it would be amazing instead of having some of our children go to private schools up in San Jose, they keep them here. And I'm also for public education. I'm a product of public education, Huntington Beach High School, UC San Diego. So we need to improve our local public schools too. Strongly in favor of that as well. But again, back to the southeast quadrant, be for the sports, recreation, leisure designation to allow commercial, rural, residential, retail, and public land, sports, and recreation. And with the southeast quadrant, you're going to have to consider the rights and wants of the current property owners, and you're also going to have to consider the environment. So there's a lot of things at play there. Thank you.
Marilyn?
General plan is probably one of the most important documents for our city, and it's overdue. We need to form a committee of both elected and private citizens that will come together and look at the city as a whole, look at our infrastructure and how we can improve it, how we need to change it. One of the things that I'd like to see changed is, it's called a RDCS, is residential control, how builders apply for building permits. Right now it's pretty complex. I understand why it's in place because we do need to control that. But I think we need to simplify that a bit, and hopefully under the general plan that will be addressed and make it a little bit easier for people to apply for permits. One thing that the city right now that we don't have is market rate rentals. And I think that's going to have to play into the general plan greatly, because by bringing in rentals, and we have the new one, well, it's not new, but it's now got life in it again, at the corner of Main and Butterfield. That's going to be market rate rentals. Those people are going to shop downtown, hopefully. They might even take public transportation and get some cars off the road because it's in such a great location. But those are the type of issues that we need to look at in the general plan, our infrastructure and how our traffic flows, how our businesses work. So I am excited that this is going to happen during the next 4 years. Something I felt we really needed, and it's overdue, like I said, and let's get it done.
Joseph?
Yeah, the general plan is one of the most important documents the city has. I would want to improve it. Also, the residential development control system makes it hard for them to bid on certain things. So I would improve that, I guess, to get more development downtown and around the city. I would also like to extend the downtown, the center divider that has the crosswalks. I don't know if you know about those downtown. There's a couple of speed bumps, there's crosswalks. That only goes up to Dunn Avenue. It's a center divider with the trees in the middle. I would like to see that go all the way up to where the post office is, or even farther, all the way up to Tenet. That way it'd be easier for people to walk across the street without, it would be easier for people to cross the street, also put in a couple of more speed bumps. So I would like to expand the downtown, make the downtown longer. And I guess that has to do with, that would have to be, general plan would have to be changed in order to expand the downtown. So that's one of the things I want to do. Is there any other questions?
No, that should cover it. Larry?
Thank you. We spoke about the general plan earlier, and I'll just expand upon some of the things I was saying. It truly is our roadmap for the future and will last us for decades to come. The important things that the council's already identified, and I'm a firm supporter in, is that we look at embedding the successes of our residential growth control that we have in place today and embed those successes within our general plan, so that they're there within the plan for years to come, and yet allow us to work with them much easier. The general plan should protect our open spaces that we have today and those that we want to maintain for years to come. We should identify what our transportation needs are, not only today, but where they will be in the future, both within the city, within our own network, and regionally our connections with the rest of the region. One of the important areas you asked about things that we will individually champion, I'll be a champion for how do we look at schools within our general plan and within our community. Are we promoting development that supports our existing schools? And where will we designate potential areas for potential new schools within Morgan Hill? Our general plan should also address public safety issues we've been talking about. How do we make sure that our fire protection services can get to all parts of our community within the quickest time frame possible? And police services as well. How are we providing those police services to all areas of our community? In general, the plan that is our general plan has to provide for all the infrastructure that is our community, whether that be our schools, our police, our fire, our roads, our sewer, our water. We have to get into each one of those issues within our general plan. That's why it is so important. That's why we'll take years to actually draft it. That's why we'll engage the community and have lots of input from folks across this community in order to update the general plan, because it will be our roadmap for the future for years to come.
Thank you. Well, folks, 2 of you are going to get elected. 2 of you are going to be able to continue your service to the city without being part of the city council. You're now going to have 3 minutes, starting with Marilyn, Joseph, Larry, and Matt, to sum up what you want to do in the council and why you should be elected the next city council representative.
Thank you. In my closing, I do want to say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce too. This is very nice that we've had this opportunity for the folks here in the audience to get to know all of us a little bit better. As far as what I plan to do in the next 4 years, I spoke a little bit about reforming our request for bids. That's high on my priority. I want to engage the public. I want to think locally and be approachable to our citizens. These are all important issues for me. We've talked about some of the issues that are coming about in the next 4 years, and like I said in my opening statement, I do bring experience to the council, and I think that's really important. I am a fiscal steward of our budget, and I will be closely looking at who we hire as our new city manager. And I think it's important that we partner with like our schools and some of the other organizations such as the Chamber, such as Rotary, such as all the Kiwanis and all that, and see how they can help the city too. So I'm open to suggestions and I want to hear from the citizens. So for that reason, I ask you to elect me. I said this last week and I'm going to say it again. You don't have to remember my name, just vote for the girl.
Well, that's funny. Okay, yeah, I'm Joseph Creel. I hope to get elected for city council. City council is a good way to get more known in politics. I enjoy politics a lot, and I'm sure I'll enjoy helping the city, but there's a lot of other political organizations involved. If I was a city council member, I'd want to partner with a lot of the regional organizations too, and improve what the city gets. You know, I would like to see improvement in the city, and I also want to get more known in politics. So I hope you will vote for me this election. I hope I'll bring a lot to the city, a lot of knowledge, a lot of new ideas, because I have a lot of more ideas than most council members. It would bring a different point of view, a different opinion. I also want to help the poor, like the Occupy movement does. So I have a completely different opinion, and I hope I bring a lot to the city council. So I hope you'll vote for me this election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, well, thank you. Before I get into my closing, I just wanted to touch on one topic that, and that is our public employees. We talked real briefly about negotiations, and I just wanted to comment. I find our public employee negotiations to be very reasonable. I have lots of respect for the work that our public employees do. They do hard work on behalf of us every single day. And in fact, they have been a part of solving budget problems in the past. Part of our sustainable budget strategy does involve our employees, and they've stepped to the plate when needed. So I just want to comment on that really quick. But in closing, I just want to thank you again for coming out tonight. You probably have lots of other things going on in your life, but it's important that you're out here and learning about each one of us. I've enjoyed the time that I've spent with my fellow candidates up here and getting to know them a little bit in this campaign. Thank you to the Chamber for putting this on. I would ask you to take a look at the candidates, think about the issues you've heard tonight, the issues that you believe are going to be important to the city of Morgan Hill as you think about who to vote for. There's lots of important things that are going to be on your ballot, whether you're voting by mail or whether you're going to vote in November. I would just ask that you pay attention to all of them. Get to the issues that are important to you, that are important to this community. Issues like Measure G and the importance of funding our schools. Issues like your local city council election and others that affect Morgan Hill very directly. I've put together a very diverse group of endorsements and supporters in my campaign. I'm proud to have the support of Mayor Steve Tate and that of former County Supervisor and current Water District member Don Gage, the Morgan Hill Times, the Santa Clara Association of Realtors, and South Bay Labor Council amongst some of my endorsements. As I said in my opening, this election is about the future of Morgan Hill, but it's also about leadership. If you believe that candidates for your city council should be supported based on their commitment to the community and their track record of positive results, their energy and ideas, then I would certainly be honored to have your support in voting for Larry Carr for City Council. Again, thank you for coming out tonight and listening to us.
Again, thank you for the Chamber for having us. We really appreciate it. I think the community really appreciates the opportunity to hear the candidates speak. I would really appreciate your vote. I think one of the key things is getting to know me and take my campaign literature and calling me. I have my phone number, my cell phone, my email. Get a hold of me, find out where I stand on all the issues to determine if I'm a viable candidate to the incumbents. So that's really, Mayor Tate does it. And if I am going to be elected, it's important that I get out there, not know you just during this process, but also as a city council member to be very accessible to the public. Mayor Tate does a wonderful job of that. I plan to do the same thing. Also, please visit my Smart Voter webpage. And thanks again for having us.
Very good. Round of applause for our candidates. Thank you for being here. As you know, those of you who've been serving and are putting your hats in the ring to serve again, it's not a high-paying job, as anyone who knows. And thank you for what you do. For those who've stepped forward to say, it's a big thing to put yourself out there like you are and putting yourself forward. It takes courage. It takes a certain kind of citizenship. So our hats off to all of you. And to those of you who've come to spend your evening here tonight, thank you. There's nothing more important than being an informed voter, of knowing what's going on. We had many more questions here, both some we had before the night and some you all turned in. We couldn't get to them all. I don't think you would have stayed till midnight. We would have. We're having fun. But to those of you that are watching later on MHAT and getting yourself informed that way, thank you very much. It's important. This is democracy in action. I've often said that I don't care if someone disagrees on an issue, but please make sure your disagreement is grounded in a good understanding of the facts and the different alternatives. So anyone can have an opinion, but thank you for being someone who's searching to have an informed opinion. That's a more rare thing, and you're all to be commended for being part of that. So thank you for coming tonight. I'm sure if we didn't get to your question here, there's no one more accessible than a candidate looking for your vote. There will be an opportunity out here in the lobby afterwards to come up and ask, hey, I'd like some clarification on your answer, or a question, my question didn't get asked. This is an ideal time. Larry and Marilyn, I found while they've been on the council, have been very approachable. City council meetings, they love to hear from you there. There's an opportunity there. So please continue to be involved, and thank you for coming tonight. Any last words, Jeff?
Now the responsibility belongs to the audience. There's about 40 of you out there. There's 40,000 people in Morgan Hill. Not all of them vote. Can't remember what the number is, around 19,000 that vote in Morgan Hill. That means each one of you has the responsibility to touch 500 people and get them interested in what you've seen today. The voter pamphlet is key to it. If they couldn't make it, please tell your friends to watch MHAT either this weekend to look at the AAUW presentations that were made last week, or next weekend to take a look at this particular presentation. It's really important. What makes this city work is the people who live in it. Get out, get informed, and vote. Thanks for coming.